The objective of this lesson is to be able to figure out the slope of a line and then use the slope to find additional points on the line. What does it mean for a point to lie on a graph? It just means it's somewhere on that actual graph. What does that mean with regards to an equation? It means that that point has to satisfy the x and the y in the equation so that the left side must equal the right side. So if I look at this one and I say if some point lies on the graph of this, then what's k? What are we missing here? So we're going to do 2 instead of x, the x value here, plus k, we don't know k, whatever you don't know, leave it as your variable, times y, well they're giving us y here, equals negative 11. All right, so start solving. Negative 6 plus half k equals negative 11. So add 6 to both sides. And then times by 2 to get rid of timesing by half. And so what is k? K is negative 10, which means the equation would be 2x negative 10y is equal to negative 11. And if I were to graph that line, this point would be on the line. And now we're going to get into slope. What if I asked you to graph that line? Okay, most people would go ahead and start solving for slope-intercept. And I'm getting a little ahead of myself, but that's okay. So you would subtract 2x from both sides. And then you would divide everything by negative 10. We'd reduce that slope right there. And we just would figure out what to do with these negatives. So most people would do this work, and then they'd figure out that this is my slope and that this is my y-intercept. We're going to get into a little bit later where you don't need to do all this work, but this is what you are used to. So here are the forms of equations. You are so used to the slope-intercept form because that's probably all your Algebra 1 teacher talked about. Point-slope form, it's a form that is pretty much equivalent to this. You can use either one of these interchangeably, and depending on who you had for Algebra 1, who you had for Algebra 2, they might have taught that. Some teachers might not have taught it at all. I'm not really sure because we have so many different teachers here. But this is my preference, and I prefer this method because I think it's quick and easy. I don't have to worry about forgetting certain steps. I also prefer it because higher math courses require you to use this more often. But I also want you to know just because I prefer it doesn't mean that you have to use it. If you want to go back and use slope-intercept for all of it, that's fine. You will not get marked down as long as you do everything right. And then, of course, standard form, ax plus by equals c. Or they might have ax plus by plus c equals 0. So just get used to that. All right, this form, if you look at this, this is in slope-intercept, correct? Y is equal to mx plus b. But what's the slope? Your slope is your m. Your slope is always the number, the fraction in front of the x. 2/3. Okay, so now what I'd like you to do is I would like you to take this equation and I want you to understand how to get the slope from here. Most of the books say, oh, go ahead and put it into slope-intercept form. I'm saying you don't have to, but I want to show you what it's like, what the difference is. Ax plus by equals c. So if you want to put this in slope-intercept form, you would have to get the x term on the other side, so you'd have to subtract the ax. So you would have by is equal to negative ax plus c. But then you'd have to get rid of whatever number's in front of y. Let's say it was a 5 or something. Divide by b, divide by b, divide by b. And you would get y is equal to negative a over b x plus c over b. What I want you to realize is that in doing all this work, there's many chances for you to make a mistake. So what I want you to do is I want you to understand how to go from standard form into slope-intercept form without doing all this in-between stuff. Okay, and here it is. If it's in standard form, so you've got the x term and the y term equals, and then your number over here. Your slope is the opposite of a over b, always. Always. You don't have to think about it. It's always going to be that. Your y-intercept is always c over b. Let me go back and write another problem from the previous couple slides. I had given you 2x minus 10y equals negative 11. And we've already done this in our notes. You can look back at your notes. But we took some time and we did all of this work here. I'm going to say, no, waste of time. And you'll get to know me as a teacher. I don't like to do things that a shortcut exists for. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to write it into slope-intercept right away. I'm going to say y equals. And I'm going to remember it's opposite of this divided by this. What's the opposite of 2 divided by negative 10? 1/5 right away. And then my y-intercept is this divided by this. Positive 11/10. Done. The reason I want you to get used to doing this a lot quicker is sometimes they'll give you a problem like this. Let me throw out another one here. So let's say I give you 2x minus 3y equals 6. And they just may say, what's the slope? You don't need to go through all this work. Blah, 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 blah. No. What's the slope? Opposite of this divided by this. My slope would be 2/3. I'm done. I don't have to do any work. Opposite of this divided by this. Got it? Hopefully. Let's estimate the slope of this line. Okay? So you can, if you can see it, hopefully you can. You got all these little squares here, right? Look for corners of the square and having that line go through the corners. So I'm looking. Oh, it looks right here, right? See it? Nope. Oh, right here. Just do rise over run. Okay? But when you do it in a problem like this, you got to look closely because each square is technically a half a spot. But it's the same thing on both, so it's going to be quite easy. So from here to here, it's down 1 over a half. Do you see that? From here to here, because I went down 2 squares, that's technically 1 unit. And then I went over 1 square, which is actually a half of a unit. So if I go down 1 over a half, remember this is rise over run. We don't ever leave fractions inside fractions. So -1 divided by half. Okay, let's go back to some basic stuff here. -1, we change this divide to a times by flipping this bottom fraction around. So the slope is technically -2. Use the point -2, -2, and a slope of 2 to find 3 additional points. Well, what you're going to want to do here is first come up with an equation. Okay? And you can do y equals mx plus b. Slope-intercept. I'm going to pick point slope because I like that one better. And of course, I have it memorized. But if you use the equation y equals mx plus b, you're going to put the y value here. The y value is -2. Your m is your slope. The slope is +2. Times your x. Your x value is -2. Plus your b. We don't know b. And I'm going to go through and start doing the work. 2 times -2. You have to solve for b. And then you still have to write your equation, y equals mx plus b form. So y is equal to m. M is your slope. X stays x when you write the equation, plus your b. Okay, but I'm not done with the problem. All I did is figure out the equation so far. I haven't actually figured out my 3 additional points. So we'll deal with that in a second. I like point slope form just again because to me it's easier. But I know the equation like the back of my hand. And what I did from a previous part of your notes is that y1 and the x1 I wrote as c's because that tells me it's my coordinate. So y minus, what's the y coordinate of my point? My m, parentheses, don't forget parentheses, x minus the x coordinate. Now all I'm going to do is go through and simplify. These become plus plus, and I'm going to solve for y. So of course I've got to distribute to get rid of these parentheses. Okay, is y solved for? Do I have y all by itself? No, I got to get rid of this 2. So y is equal to 2x plus 2. I got the same answer. And again, this is what you're used to and you don't want to change. Feel free. Stay with this. If you want to maybe try this out because it's shorter, feel free. Whatever you want. I like it because it's shorter. But I haven't answered my question yet. Pick 3 additional points that will go through this line. So pick any point you want. I always pick 0. Plug a 0 in. There's one additional point. Okay? How about 1? Plug a 1 in there. 2 times 1 plus 2. Okay, how about the number 2? 2 times 2 plus 2. What if I want another one? You can pick as many points as you want, but once you get the equation set up, now you just start plugging in any points you want for x and doing the math.